Hello and happy Tuesday, which is of course my book reviews day. And today I would like to talk to you about Indigo by Charlaine Harris, Christopher Golden, Kelley Armstrong, Jonathan Mayberry, Kat Richardson, Seanan McGuire, Tim Lebbon, Cherie Priest, James A. Moore, and Mark Morris. No, this is not an anthology, and no, this is not a short story collection. This is a novel. These 10 authors back in 2017 all came together and said, you know what, we want to write a collaborative novel about Nora, an investigative reporter who turns into the vigilante Indigo in the nighttime. She's a superhero of sorts with the power of shadows at her fingertips. And yeah, it's not a mosaic novel. It's a novel through and through. Look at all those author names. That is wild. And, yeah, you're probably wondering, how do 10 authors write a novel like that? And it's a struggle, I guess. I mean, I don't know. There's probably interviews out there, with any of the 10 authors describing the process, describing what they did. I would like to think that they all kind of took their ideas and threw them in a pot, and then one author, kind of was the funnel to get those words on the page. That way you had a nice, concise writing tone throughout. Whereas what I think actually happened was that each author may have written 2 chapters, and they sort of stitched them together. Because there's 20 chapters, including the epilogue. There's 10 authors, so, it makes sense. Everyone does 2 chapters. The story itself, it's actually pretty fun. It's difficult at the start, but more on that in a second. But yeah, Nora is investigating the disappearance of children. Children are being kidnapped and they're being sacrificed by a cult. And the cult is, trying to summon a demon. And so it's up to Nora and her superhero alter ego, Indigo, to stop this cult. And if you're thinking, whoa, having it be a cult sounds like it's a spoiler, and you're spoiling this novel for me. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it does feel like it should be a spoiler, but that is unfortunately one of the issues with the novel, is that it kind of starts like halfway through in a way. And not even like chronologically. I mean, like it's like you're turning on a TV and you jump into a police procedural, an episode of NCIS halfway through. That's how this novel feels in the beginning. Like, I almost had like whiplash in the first few chapters, because it's like, yeah, there's no real introduction to Indigo. It's like, oh yeah, and she's Indigo. There's no real introduction to the cult. She's like, yeah, I've been dealing with this cult for years. And you're like, great. I haven't. I just got here. So yeah, it hits the ground running. And for that, it might deter readers. So if you jump into Indigo and you're like, holy crap, I've got some whiplash from the opening chapters, you're not alone. But I will say, once you get past that very steep learning curve, it's a very fun novel. It's a very enjoyable tale. I mean, with her being an investigative reporter and her investigating the disappearance of children, you might think, oh, this is going to be like a crime novel. It even actually says a crime-solving novel. So you think, oh, it might be like a little, detective fiction. No, it's more of like urban fantasy, superhero fiction. But that's fine. I mean, Indigo herself is an interesting enough hero. Her backstory is a little suspicious, which, I mean, is intentional. I mean, I think it even says that in the description here. Yeah, her parents were killed when she was 19 years old. She took the life insurance money and went off to explore the world, leading her to become a student of meditation and strange magic. A history that many would realize sounds suspiciously like the origin of several comic book characters. And yeah, it's as she learns more about her own past, and as you, as the reader, peel back the layers and learn more about Nora's past, it's interesting. And it's not bad. But unfortunately, it does take about 100 pages for you to get over there, because like I said, it's a very steep learning curve. As I had mentioned, it does feel like every author may have written 2 chapters, and I don't want to make that sound like it feels like there's 10 authors trying to grab the wheel, because that's not the case. Most of the time, it works well. Most of the time, the novel is one concise narrative. It's not intended to feel like there's multiple personalities, trying to steer the narrative. But sometimes there are chapters here and there where the tone is inconsistent. There's a chapter where there are a lot more descriptions and a lot more detail regarding the outfits of the people that Nora and Indigo are encountering, which is fine, except that it's only in that one chapter. Like, that level of detail does not exist in the rest of the novel. And you're like, well, this feels like someone else wrote it. I mean, the action scenes are decent. Her taking down the bad guys is all right. And then there's one instance where the characters need to get from point A to point B, a whole bunch of evil cultists in the middle, and the author just says, oh yeah, so then she went and beat up all the bad guys and she got to point B. Just quick like that. Like, oh, now we're done. And you're left thinking, well, this author clearly didn't want an action scene, and it's inconsistencies like that unfortunately are the weak points of Indigo. I mean, I haven't read all of the authors who contributed to this, and it wasn't like I could point to a single chapter and say, oh, that one was Christopher Golden, or oh, that one was Seanan McGuire. It just wasn't there for me, but there's, there are instances and occurrences where you're left thinking, well, that seems like it was written by a different person. And it probably was. You take your pick of the 10, throw your name at the dartboard, and you'll find somebody. But yeah, I mean, I thought overall it was an interesting experiment for these 10 authors. And I think it sort of pulled off. I mean, it worked. They pulled it off in terms of they got a nice little book published in the end. St. Martin's Press agreed. And yeah, it's not a bad read. You just have to get over that first, 100 pages or so to actually get to the good parts. And that's not to say that the first 100 pages are bad. It's just, like I said, it just kind of pushes you in the deep end, and you're left thinking, what the hell is going on? It's not a very warm welcome that you receive, unfortunately. I will say that Nora, I mean, there is some investigative reporting in the beginning, in the early chapters. That's kind of really brushed to the side. It's almost like one author is like, you know what, we're going to make her an investigative reporter. And then another author said, you know what, let's just kind of, let's focus on the superhero bit. And thankfully that's the route it goes, because that's the more exciting bit. But anyways, yeah, Indigo by Charlaine Harris, Christopher Golden, Kelley Armstrong, and the rest of them. It's a decent read. This particular copy is one that I actually picked up on VJ Books. Which is pretty fun because it was actually signed by Harris, Golden, Armstrong, McGuire, and Lebbon, which is pretty cool. So, 5 out of 10 ain't bad. But you should be able to pick up a copy or order a copy wherever books are sold. I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily still in print or readily available in bookstores. This did come out in 2017, but you shouldn't have any difficulty finding this online. It's very interesting, especially in terms of the genre, the superhero kind of urban fantasy, because even though I haven't read all of these authors, a lot of them jump out to me as horror authors. Mark Morris, James Amor, Christopher Golden, Tim Lebbon. I mean, Seanan McGuire is very much urban fantasy. Charlaine Harris is urban fantasy. Kelley Armstrong is urban fantasy. So it kind of makes sense that this, this is urban fantasy, but it's surprising to see as many horror authors, or what I would associate as horror authors, having contributed to this. But it's pretty cool, though. So yeah, that's Indigo by Charlaine Harris, Christopher Golden, Kelley Armstrong, Jonathan Mayberry, Kat Richardson, Seanan McGuire, Tim Lebbon, Cherie Priest, James Amor, and Mark Morris. Check out all those authors. If you're a fan of those authors, you might not like the end result just because, like I said, it wasn't distinctively one of those authors, at least any of the authors that I have read of those, any of their tones. And you may want to stick to their individual stories. But if you want a nice little experience of saying, hey, you've read something by all 10 of these, then Indigo might be the read for you. Thank you very much for watching. I have at least one book review a week on Tuesdays, plus plenty of other unboxing videos in between here and there. So please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you around next time.